Good evening. I am somewhere south of Phoenix. I'm actually not really sure where I am. I'm in some parking lot, but such is my life. I wanted to share a story back from Budapest. In Budapest, I was with the guys, and we went out to this bar club type thing, and I was standing in line to get a drink, and I don't remember how it started, but anyway, this couple came up. They were also in line or something, and I think they said, I think they heard me speaking, and they were like, "Oh, where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from the U.S." "Oh, where from?" "Oh, I'm from Massachusetts." And the guy was like, "My family is from Massachusetts." And I was like, "What the heck?" Anyway, we ended up getting into this conversation, and I was chatting with the girl, and she was super into anime and Japanese like comics and stuff. And we were talking about Japan and how they wanted to go to this, or they were planning a trip to go there. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've been to Tokyo." And she goes, "Oh, like what did you think?" And in that moment, it was as if my brain had lost all memory, all thought. I was like, Tokyo. What? It's like I was sifting through the filing cabinets of like Tokyo, Tokyo, Tokyo. Where what was Tokyo like? And I realized that I have already started to forget places and travels. And I want to put a, maybe not disclaimer, but just say first off that I am incredibly grateful to have this as a problem, but I just wanted to share from my perspective. Like, this is what I'm dealing with, and that makes it sound so weird. I just wanted to share my story and my perspective. Anyway, and what I'm doing about it. So I realized that I had already started to forget places and forget travels and forget memories. And I know they're in my mind somewhere, but because I don't, let me rephrase that. My understanding is that in order to keep your memories fresh, you have to share them or like relive them. Share stories from, "Oh, I was in, Kansas, and I saw my family, and like, oh, remember that time in whatever at the hometown at college, and we went out." Like, those stories, every time you tell them, they help to refresh your memory. And that combined, well, not retelling stories as often, combined with just having so many places that I've been to in the last 2 years. Again, very grateful to be able to say that. But it's just like this overload of places and cities and memories that I was just walking, and I was thinking about this video and how I drove up to Montana my first year in the van, did this big Western US road trip, drove up to Montana and did Glacier National Park. And I was just thinking about that thought and almost in disbelief. And it was the same thing with the girl I was talking to about Tokyo. I'm starting to notice this like almost separation and disbelief about places that I've been to. And I think it's because, again, of this combination of not not refreshing mixed with just having so many places in my mind at this point. So I went to Southeast Asia in October of last year through I left in April, and I'm starting to get to that point where like I almost kind of don't even believe that I was there. It kind of feels like this just dream or thing that isn't real. And I'm not really sure what what to say about it. But I will say that this is exactly why I decided to start. Well, it was an accumulation of things, but I have been documenting and taking photos. Sorry, documenting my life for the past 2.5 years, and it was basically this moment and this thing that I'm talking about is the reason why I started doing that. And so I take a lot of photos. I use Google Android phone, and so I use Google Photos, and so I have just like hundreds of gigabytes of photos and videos on my Google Photos, and I will every so often go back and like trim things and delete photos and archive photos. And I have this Google photo album called Remembering Your Life. And just because I've taken so many photos, I started this album that was basically just monthly highlights of just picking, rather than having, 6 photos of a party or like Thanksgiving. You take a bunch of photos, you take the like picture of your meal, there's like the family photo, there's like the people chatting. And for this album, it's like you just take one photo and put it in there. And so I don't know, it varies how many photos per month, but every so often I haven't updated it in a little while, but every so often I'll update that. I have Google Photos. I started writing blog posts every week. They started as basically a weekly highlight of like, this is what happened this week, and this is kind of what I want to remember. And they turned into, still that, but just like a snapshot of my week. Things that went well, things that I'm thinking about, photos from the week, highlights, lowlights. I've talked about a lot of things I've struggled with on those blog posts. And they are my way of stopping just for a second in order to help my future self relive his own memories. And so I'm not saying that you, the viewer, should do all of these things. I have a where do I want to go with this? A problem, a tendency to over document. And so I think I made some video a while back that was like, you should probably take more photos. And I think I was talking about something similar. But if I were to recommend to the average person, I would say you should probably take more photos just of your life. And write down your thoughts. one thing that I've really liked is I did a lot of journaling and writing in a electronic notebook. I use Obsidian, um, I guess some note-taking software, and just documenting like this is a problem that I'm struggling with, and it also helps to overcome by writing it out and getting on paper, doing your pros cons list, whatever. But rereading those is fascinating because it's this weird mixture of gratitude for the journey that I've taken since that point, with this like wisdom of, it's like, oh, you're just you haven't seen enough, or you're missing this you're too focused on this thing, or, and it's just this, but it's like your own life. It is you in the past, and you've captured that as a snapshot. I have just continued to find this sense of meaning from reading those. So anyway, I do a lot of stuff, and I probably do too much. Definitely do too much for the average person. But I guess I, at the same time, don't really live an average life. So I guess that's appropriate. But this is why I do all of this. And I remember in Budapest, my last day, I was eating at this Vietnamese place, and I just went onto my own website and was scrolling back through blog posts like, oh, let's pick this one, and just reread it, and like, this was my first week in Bali, like, oh, and remember that moment. And it's so fun, you know. And so I always envisioned that when I'm 80, I want to be able to relive the memories of my past and not just leave it up to chance, luck, for, just whatever sticks, whatever I remember. The problem with that is that you miss so much. You miss all of the details. You miss the, like, maybe one week it's like, oh yeah, this week was just a slow week. I went for a walk on Sunday, and it was spring, and flowers were blooming, and you could like smell the fresh spring air. You're not going to remember that unless you capture it. And so that's at least my perspective. You can always trim, but if you forget it, it's gone. Unless it's brought up by some rogue story or rogue question. You're sitting around the table and someone asks you, like, what was the weirdest thing that you did in 2023, or like what was the weirdest thing that you did in college? And it's like, oh my god, I just had this flashback. Remembered I was drunk on a porch, and I jumped off, and there was we put a bed outside. Like, it's anyway, I'm rambling. That didn't actually happen, or did it? So I'll wrap this up by saying it's interesting, this new feeling of forgetting my past and being almost in disbelief at the things and places that I've been to, the things that I've done and places that I've been to. And my hedge against that is documenting my life in the present. And I do that through photos I write, I journal, and I capture weekly highlights in blog posts that are for my future self. And so, honestly, it's working so far, but we'll see if it continues to work. See you tomorrow.